Found it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Talk, Listen, Share. And Dr. Fung is one of our hosts. Technology, people. We love this show. And we are so casual. And Dr. Fung is like having a good time tonight.
I am having a good time tonight.
Welcome to the show. Talk, Listen, Share was developed by Shay's Warriors Life After Cancer. We are inspiring, empowering, and educating survivorship in our community and beyond. We are a 501c3 produced of an all-volunteer board of directors and ambassadors. Tonight, we have a very, very special guest, Wendy Baker, who is a licensed marriage family therapist locally here in Palm Desert, California. Currently, her work focuses on treating clients struggling with depression, anxiety, life transitions, marital issues, and personal growth. And her clients include teens, adults, couples, and families. I think we can all be in that blend of clientele. She is passionate about partnering with people to help them reach their true potential by breaking unhealthy patterns and building skills to optimize mental well-being. Tonight, we're talking about caring for the caretaker when it's you. And Wendy cares for a lot of people. So for her to create balance in her own life, she enjoys time with her family, hiking, crocheting, and photographing the world around her. Welcome to the show tonight. I also like to introduce my co-host, Dr. Sonia Fung of Live Well, Jeannie Catherine as well. There you go. Welcome, everyone.
Hi. Thank you for having me. I feel really honored to be invited to be a part of this. I think it's really an amazing opportunity and such a great service to people. So thank you. I was thinking about all the different topics I could bring forth in terms of self-care and what we need as caregivers. And there's so many different things to talk about that I might end up a little bit all over the place because I could go in 100 different directions. So when I was thinking about it, I was really thinking back to when I first started as a caregiver. And obviously, I'm an emotional caregiver. I'm a therapist. So I was working at a battered women's shelter, and I was working with children primarily. And I was finding, this was before I was even licensed, so many, many, many years ago. And I was finding that I was crying sometimes on my commute home. And I was in LA, so it was a long commute. And having nightmares and thinking about my clients all the time. And realized that if I didn't figure out how to manage all this that I was taking on, I wasn't going to make it. And fortunately, I had a really good supervisor at the time who taught me a lot about self-care and boundaries. Boundaries are really kind of the Mac Daddy component of self-care. So I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about boundaries. But I learned a lot, and I have been able to now do this for almost 25 years and manage it pretty successfully. So hopefully I can share some of my experiences that have worked and maybe give a little extra that will help anybody else who's in a similar position of caring for somebody. In terms of being a caretaker, obviously there's paid professionals, and then there's people who are helping out their loved ones or spouses or family members. It's a little bit different, but the self-care and boundaries can be very similar, and also for people who are not caregivers. somebody who's a paid professional, their role is pretty clearly defined. So they know what time they're going to be there to start helping, and they know what time they get to go home. And it's very clear what the tasks are that they need to perform. And there's a different level of emotional investment. Whereas when it's somebody who's a personal friend or person in your life, it can get much muddier. It's harder to know when to start and when to stop. We sometimes carry guilt about what they're going through. And so we want to continue to give and overextend until we've got nothing left to give. So that can be an extra challenge to a caregiving relationship. There's the saying that you can't pour tea from an empty cup, and it's very true. So it's all about how do we replenish what we have so that we can continue to give in a way that's healthy for both ourselves and for the people that we're caring for. I'm going to grab a drink of my tea, self-care. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of social reinforcement for giving completely of ourselves. Think about the person who's working at their kid's school and they're on the PTA and they're the snack mom and they're doing everything. Everybody really puts them up on this pedestal like, oh, look how great and helpful they are. Look at how much they do. Nobody's paying attention to, wow, are they taking any time to care for themselves? Because that part's probably missing. So we really reinforce the fact that, especially women in our culture, we're supposed to do it all and be all for everybody. And that's just not healthy. It's not healthy for anyone. Caregivers tend to be, because they're overextending themselves, tend to be more at risk for things like heart attacks and gastrointestinal issues. I'm sure Dr. Fung and Jeannie can speak more on that from a medical perspective. I'm not a medical doctor, but I know that there's a cause and effect relationship there, or can be. People who are overextending themselves are also more likely to end up with depression or anxiety, resentment, all sorts of things. And we know that there's a really strong mind-body connection. So if we're struggling with something emotionally, it may come out physically. Jeannie, do you have something to say about that?
All right. So I was going to share a little bit about being a caregiver.
Right.
It was a very short experience. Unfortunately, actually, it was almost exactly 4 years ago to the day that I got a call from my mom. My dad had been having headaches and they found a brain mass. And of course, being a healthcare provider, I know the worst case scenario that probably is, and that's just not usually going to be a good outcome. So, of course, we went through, the surgery, the diagnosis, and my dad was fairly young, 3 months prior. We were playing in a golf tournament together. And pretty, healthy guy on one little blood pressure medication, and that was it. And they live about 45, 50 minutes away. And so, I'm on top of the medical side as well as the family side. My mom, at first I was really worried. She turned out really to rally up, do the things that, needed to be done. But I was dropping everything. Calling, I'm in healthcare. I'd be calling and like, I got to leave at lunch. Can somebody cover my first couple patients? Because I had to go all the way from Palm Desert to Beaumont to help get my dad back up and going. And so, that was very, very stressful. And it kind of, derailed my relationship with my sister because she also lived 45 minutes away, but was a stay-at-home mom and all her kids are in school, much older. And that was very difficult because, of course, I would never complain to my parents. I wanted to be there, but I also had a job I had to do and wanted to save that time off that I thought I might need as things may progress or just, wanting to do a bucket list kind of thing. So glioblastoma, brain cancer. not a great prognosis. And unfortunately, from date of diagnosis to his passing was only 7 weeks.
Wow.
Again, now I'm not only caregiving with my father, but now my mom is a widow after almost 50 years. So moving her here, or, asking her what she wanted to do. And then she ended up wanting to move here. And again, I think the biggest impact as far as being a caregiver was not really probably asking for other help. And I probably should have taken some time off work, but hindsight is always 2020. But literally, like, the cancer derailed my relationship with my sister. And it's been 4 years now, and it's still, we're just not on speaking terms. And it's the challenges of cancer and the impacts that it has on families. Losing the death. I know, being a healthcare provider, seeing a family lose a child derails marriages.
Right.
And you would think when like somebody's sick, especially a parent, that brings your family closer together, and that's just not always the case. Right. And so my mom is doing okay. She's here and she's close to us, so she stays involved with our family and my son. And I'm still trying to push her into, obviously not dating. She would never do that, but at least like getting involved in Bonko or something that she can start making friends and not just rely on me and my family to be her only social support. So it's a challenge, still working through all of that stuff. And it's been 4 years.
Wow. I can only imagine, and you can share more about this if you choose to, but compassion fatigue is a real thing. When we're giving to somebody, it's exhausting. And especially when it's a family member, a parent or a spouse, we keep giving until there's just nothing left. And when you have something like compassion fatigue, you can start to isolate from people because you just can't stand the possibility of somebody else asking for something else. Or you can start to feel all the buildup and notice that you're really short with people, or irritable, or snapping at people because you're tapped out. People will start to sometimes abuse substances or alcohol and have depression and anxiety. It's a real thing. And it's tough. It's tough because a lot of times we feel that obligation out of concern for the worst case scenario. Well, what if this is my last opportunity to help them? And I'm going to give everything I can, so I know that I've done that. But there's a cost to that too. Definitely. So
yeah, we never talked about like the following, because then COVID happened. Mm-hmm. And I really don't have any health problems. I have some mild allergies from being out in the desert, and I ended up in the ICU for a week with COVID, bilateral pneumonia. And wow. Obviously, we can't, there's so many variables in there, being in healthcare and maybe, viral loading with exposure. But I was by the time COVID hit, I was pretty tapped out. Mm-hmm. For sure. So I could see that definitely being a contributing factor to the toll it took on my health once a pandemic hit.
Right. So self-care is one of those things that can reduce the vulnerability of really hitting that breaking point. There's certain things that can trigger that breaking point, but there's certain things that make us more vulnerable. And it's when we're not practicing good self-care. So of course, there's the foundational things like, of course, good nutrition is really important. Making sure that you're fueling your body to meet the needs that you have to meet, because it takes a lot of energy, not just physically, but mentally. And we have to have good nutrition to fuel our bodies. Making sure we're hydrated, especially here in the desert, we have to stay hydrated. Making sure that you take time to rest. That's so important, to rest and to try to get some sleep. And of course, moving your body. And that's one thing that I talk to all my clients about in terms of self-care. And it's the hardest thing to motivate for when you're tapped out. Get your body moving, because that's where we can kind of process some of our stress, get it out of our system, release those endorphins from getting our heart rate up. It's so important for our coping. And not only that, when we're working out, we feel stronger, we feel more empowered, and it helps us in a lot of different ways. So aside from the basic physical health care that we can do, we have to be able to ask for help. Hopefully, obviously it's not everybody's situation, but hopefully there's other people who can step up and at least give a little bit of relief to you, even if they come and stay for a little while so you can go out for a walk or get away for some family time or something. But there's got to be other places to get help, even if it's paying for a professional part-time or having a housekeeper come in or doing the those meal programs or something to alleviate some of the pressures that you feel. It's important to maintain balance in your life. If you are all about the caretaking, that can take over. And then what other parts of your life suffer, perhaps your health or your relationships, that down the road, when the crisis has kind of calmed down a little bit or is over, now you have all those other things to repair. Like you're talking about the relationship with your sister, Jeannie. You know, yes, you had the loss of your father, which is horrible, but now you have this other loss to deal with and other changes to deal with, which is really unfortunate. So maintaining balance, keeping those relationships happening, making time for the things that bring you joy or passion, finding creative outlets, whether that's music or crocheting, because that's my thing, whatever it is, but make time for things other than just being a caretaker, because you're not just a caretaker. You're also a friend and a employee maybe, or a professional, or a yoga instructor, whatever those different roles are that we have, those are important too. And we have to honor those. If you have a spiritual connection, it's a great time when you're under a lot of stress to really tap into that spiritual connection, whether it's religious or not. Whatever that higher power is that guides you and brings you peace, it's important to allow for time to connect with your spiritual self. Self-care, like I mentioned, all the basic needs that we have for nutrition and body movement. Being mindful, I know that that's kind of the big buzzword right now, is being really mindful, but it really does allow for us to filter out some of the other stressors that we may be experiencing. So mindfulness is just about being 100% present in what you're doing in the moment. So that might mean that you sit and allow yourself a meal where you unplug your phone and turn off the TV and just allow yourself to feel the texture of the food in your mouth and the smells and the tastes, because that allows you to focus on something pleasurable and present rather than all the worries or stressors that could be happening due to the caregiving. So practice mindfulness in all different ways. And I'm a big believer in focusing on the gratitudes. I know that it's suggested that people start their mornings with a few moments of gratitude before they even get out of bed, just to lay there and think what you're thankful for, and maybe for the day or just in your life in general. Because I think when we're thinking about the positive things from the get-go, it's easier to keep that momentum going. I know a lot of people have heard this example, but if all you think about is a yellow car, all you start to notice on the street is yellow cars, because you're kind of manifesting that. And it's same with our mindset. If all we think about are our stressors and negativity and the things that cause us grief or stress or frustration in our lives, everything else will become that much more frustrating and annoying and negative. Whereas if we start the day thinking about the things that bring us joy, or even the small things that we look forward to, even glimmers and just tiny bits, that can start to grow, and we can absorb that and grow from that. Sometimes it's hard to find those good things, but they're always there, always. So the other, like I said earlier, that kind of the Mac Daddy of self-care are boundaries. What are boundaries? A boundary is basically a line that differentiates a limit from one area to the next. In terms of personal boundaries, I love the way that Brené Brown describes it. She's fantastic. If you don't know who she is, you should check her out. But she basically defines it as what's okay and what's not okay. So those are boundaries for her. What's okay and what's not okay. And sometimes we have to take a few moments to think about that and identify what's okay and what's not okay. In terms of boundaries, there's a few different kinds of boundaries. And some of these are, a lot of them are general boundaries that we should all be practicing, whether we're caretakers or not, because it allows us, like I mentioned earlier, to decrease that vulnerability to major stressors in our lives. So when we have healthy boundaries, that means we're really practicing self-care and being authentic to our wants and needs. So the first area is having physical boundaries. And this can apply to a few different things. So it could be our surroundings, our home, our bedroom, our safe space, whatever that looks like. We can set boundaries with that. If we need a few minutes alone, it's okay to say, I need for everybody to leave the room right now. I need a few minutes to just catch my breath and collect my thoughts. That's a healthy boundary to set if you need that space all to yourself. It's also important to consider your physical boundaries in terms of your body. We have different needs that we need to pay attention to, and we may find that you're feeling irritable or grouchy or something, and when you stop for just a moment, you realize, wow, I'm really hungry. I need to stop and eat something. Or I notice I'm really thirsty right now. I haven't had a glass of water all day. So if we can tune into that and we can set a boundary like, I need to take a break right now and care for my physical health, that's really an important boundary to set with other people, because sometimes when we're caretaking, it's like there's so much need, we don't feel like we can take that time. We need to. Another part of the physical boundary is how we feel about touch. Not everybody wants physical touch. Not everybody's comfortable with that. Not everybody is okay with hugging. I always ask people, especially my clients, you really look like you need a hug right now. I'm a hugger, but not everybody is. How do you feel about that? Can I give you a hug? If you don't know, ask, but don't just assume that you can invade somebody's personal space like that creepy person in the grocery store line that nobody likes. I remember feeling really violated in a situation that would have seemed normal in a caregiver kind of situation. I was in the hospital after having my daughter, and the lactation specialist came in, right? Normal. This is her job. She's supposed to help me figure this out. And she walked over without saying anything and started moving my breast around. And I thought, could you at least have a conversation with me or something? But I felt like even though that was her job to do so, she didn't respect my boundary by saying, this is what I'm here for and this is what I'm going to do. So as a caregiver, it's important to honor the other person's physical space in their bodies. Even if it's something you have to do, let them know. And if there's something that they're doing to violate your physical space, let them know. So that's the physical part's really, really important. That can also, even in terms of our space, as somebody who's receiving care, sometimes there's certain things that we need to ask of people regarding our space. So maybe you have friends or family who are saying, oh, we'd love to cook for you and bring you a meal, but there's certain things that you can't eat, or there's certain smells that you can't tolerate right now. Let people know that. It's okay to set that boundary and let people know. Otherwise, people are guessing. And that may not go well. They're just guessing. Let me take another sip. Another kind of boundary are emotional boundaries. And that's just setting limits on, first of all, how much you're going to share with somebody and how much emotional energy you can take in. Our boundaries are really important. And I think if you have a personal caregiving relationship, that can get a little sticky with the emotional boundaries, because chances are pretty good that you all have the same circle of friends and connections. So if you're sharing things on a personal level, you need to know that that's a safe space to do so, and still having that information held sacred. If you're the caregiver, you need to ask permission from the person you're caring for to find out what do they feel comfortable about you sharing, and with who. They may not feel comfortable with a lot of details being out there. As somebody who, like in our personal lives, I was talking about how a lot of the boundaries really help us be less vulnerable. If you can practice good emotional boundaries too, in terms of how much you share with others, that can help keep you feeling safe and a little more protected. In terms of how much do you share with somebody right when you first meet them? Some people are an open book and they tell everybody their personal business. Well, that person may not be safe. That person may be somebody who's gossiping or who's judgmental. And so it's important to allow for a trust building process as much as possible. So maybe that means you give a little bit of information and you see what the person does with it. And then you give them a little bit more and you see what they do with it. But it's a process. Let's see. What about, there's a boundary regarding time. This is a really important one, especially for caregivers, because as caregivers, we have to allow for time for balance, like I mentioned earlier. So if somebody says, hey, I really need your help today, it's okay to set some parameters around that, to say, I'm available from 4 to 8. Does that work for you? And then stick to it. Doesn't mean that you have to be there indefinitely, because you need time to create balance in your life. You need time to spend with your family and your friends and working and doing things that allow you some, even if you want to sit and scroll TikTok all day, if that's what gives you a little reprieve, that's okay too. So be funny about your time. That's something that I do. And I've gotten really good at honoring my time in my practice, because I can work really long days. So my boundary there is I allow myself anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes between my sessions. And in that time, I use the restroom, I get a drink of water, and sometimes I just close my eyes and breathe. And I allow myself to recenter and regroup so I'm ready for the next client. If I don't allow myself that time boundary, I don't think I could make it through the day, not present and focused. I could probably be a shell of a person sitting here, but I don't know how effective I would be in that situation. So it's okay to set boundaries on your time. Hopefully this doesn't come up much in the caregiving relationship, but sexual boundaries are important. I guess if you're caregiving with a spouse, that may come up, or a partner. If it's a professional caregiver situation, obviously that should never happen. But it's also okay to be able to say, I don't like that kind of touch, or I'm not feeling intimate right now, and to not feel guilty about that, or to have the person sulk or anything like that. But that's more of a, I think less of a caregiver situation, but just something worth mentioning. There's intellectual boundaries, and those seem to come up a lot these days. And that's setting boundaries on how people respond to your opinions and your values, because a lot of people have a hard time sometimes accepting if we have differences in politics or social issues. And if you find that somebody's ridiculing you or dismissing your beliefs, it's okay to say, you know what, I'm really not comfortable with your approach to me right now. I need to know that we can agree to disagree respectfully. And if they can't, then that's not the right person to open up to. And you set an even bigger boundary. And then the last one is material boundaries. And this pertains to our stuff, our car, our money, our clothing, our stuff. And that may come up with money. Maybe the person you're caring for is asking for extra money for things that you just don't have. Or maybe somebody that is helping with the caregiving is saying, oh, I need help financially, or I need this or that. It's okay to know what your limits are and to offer what you can offer. I don't have extra money right now, but I can give an extra little bit of time, or vice versa. I don't have a lot of time right now, but let me help with some expenses. So you have to know how you can approach the material things, what you have available to you and what you don't. With anything, I think it's just with any of the boundaries, open communication is the key. And that's really the key to self-care, because I think when we spend a lot of time trying to anticipate or guess or assume the needs of somebody else, that's a lot of emotional energy. If you don't know, ask. If you don't know, gosh, I don't know if I should give them privacy right now, or if they want company, ask them. If you don't know if they're fearful about their treatment and their health right now, open that door and have that conversation, because then that takes all the guesswork out of it and it's a much clearer, authentic connection. It's really important. When you're setting boundaries, also, I like to take the approach of using iMessages. And so what that is just owning your own feelings and thoughts about a situation and then asking for what you need. And that takes, again, the guesswork out of it. So it might look like when you share my personal health information with the family, I feel violated. I feel disrespected. And what I need is for you to come to me first and find out what I'm comfortable with. That's not confrontational. That's saying this is what I need in this situation. Or when you call me at the last minute to take you to a doctor's appointment that you knew about for several days, I feel pressured and I feel frustrated that I have to drop everything and rally. I really need you to give me a heads up so that I can plan for it better. Those are iMessages that set a boundary and ask for what you need. And then it takes the guesswork out of it. If you're not communicating your needs to one another in the relationship, that's when resentment builds and frustrations start to crop up and it becomes really difficult. So it's really a matter of just communicating. So in terms of self-care, I guess to kind of summarize what's really important is doing the things that bring balance to your life, that honor your need for pleasure and joy without guilt of doing that, and setting boundaries for yourself. Some of the things that I do to set boundaries in my life and to practice self-care is I make sure I have creative outlets. So I do my crocheting because for me that's very therapeutic and it's quiet and it texturally, I like it. It feels good. So on a lot of different levels, it's very soothing for me. I like to go hike and connect with nature and be around beautiful surroundings. I make sure that I take time throughout the day to breathe, whether that be at work or in my own personal life. Sometimes I'll just sit and breathe, or I'll drive home with the radio off and just kind of reflect on my day and try to be present and mindful. So there's a lot of different things we can do to practice self-care. I'm curious what you all do for self-care, because I know that you all are also very caring, nurturing people. I'm curious the kinds of things you do.
Sonia, let me unmute myself. Oh gosh, so this season I've definitely started focusing on and making the time to exercise and do physical stuff, like to get outside. Started a weightlifting regimen and also started learning how to ride a horse.
Fantastic.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Yes.
That
was a weird thing, but fun.
I'm so proud of Sonia for doing you, because I have been working late at night and Sonia is late at night. So for her to do that as a doctor, that's a big deal. So congratulations on that, Sonia.
That's a huge deal.
Thank you.
Yeah. And there's something too very therapeutic about horses. That's why they have equine therapy. Because it's something about that connection between people and horses that's very healing.
Yes. Yeah. They're just such gentle creatures, and like they really do, like when you connect with them, they're like, oh hey, and then obviously like I give little treats to the horse, and so they really like that too. And so they like come up to you and they're like, hey friend, do you have more for me? And then it just like, you're like, oh, you're such a good horse. And it's really cute. So
that's nice.
They're great horses.
Very good. What about you, Shay or Jeannie? What do you do to practice self-care?
Well, this year it is a balance. I will say it's a balance and a challenge. I actually started taking Fridays. I actually schedule it on my calendar and I X off the entire Friday. And I use that as my self-care day, because I pretty much work the other day of the week.
Yeah.
Including the weekends a lot of times. And so Friday seems to be a day where I will try very hard not on my computer. And even though I'll be honest, I'll do emergency stuff. And I try to go do my errands and like the stuff that I need, but also like going to get my hair done or nails, or just going to get a coffee or visit a friend, do a hike. I go to spin class twice a week at our partner's cycle. And that has really, really helped, because I'm not the teacher, as in the cycling or teaching yoga. I'm the student. And it's nice to go to a studio and take that teacher hat off and just be the student and get into the dark room, the music, the fun, and be among community too that wants to support you that way, very similar to the weightlifting. And then I also did start weightlifting at a studio too. It really has helped mentally, physically, and emotionally, because we do a lot of, caring for others in this, but also my other job is caring for a lot of like people's homes and all of that good stuff. So yeah, I'm sticking to it, and being able to write that down in a planner so I can write it down has really helped me stay focused on that's an appointment with myself.
Right.
Versus, you know what, it's me, so I'll just forget it and move on.
I love that. I have a friend that used to she probably still does. Sundays are family day. So she plans nothing social with anybody else. And, if I call and say, oh, hey, we're having a barbecue. Nope, it's family day. Thanks for the invite. Okay. So I think that that's fantastic. And I've tried to implement some of that as well. There's a fantastic TED Talk by a woman named Sarah Knight. And it's called The Magic of Not Giving a F. Fire truck. It's not really fire truck. But she talks about how do you establish a budget with your time, energy, and money. And if you're being invited to participate in things or to do a committee or this or that, she says, think about, does that honor your time, energy, or money? And if it doesn't, it's okay to say no. And no is a complete sentence. I think so often we feel like we have to explain, like, oh, I can't do it because I have, and we have to, give our whole grocery list of things in our life so that we don't feel guilty about saying no. But her example, I love it. She would just say, thanks for the invitation. I'm not available, period. And if it wasn't something she wanted to do, I think her example was like her boss's daughter's bat mitzvah or something. She goes, okay, I'm going to have to buy a gift. That's money. And that's time I have to do on the weekend. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it. And so she allows herself to say no guilt-free. And I think that's a phenomenal boundary.
I think saying no is very, very hard for a lot of people that say yes. Yep. Because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I know one of the other boundaries that I've set since the pandemic, and it really has helped, is setting calls. It is so much more efficient than me getting in the car and driving 40 minutes on the other side of the valley or 30 minutes on the other side of the valley, because that's a lot of windshield time and it's a lot of stress and anxiety. Whoever knows what our desert is like during this time of year. But, it really does help because we can accomplish pretty much the same thing, even though I love to be in person and talk and chat. If it's more about this or it's more about doing something, the boundary of being able to do or just a regular old phone call is better for me personally because of my busy schedule and what I do all the time.
Right. And you're exactly right about that. It's about tuning in and knowing what you have available to give and knowing where you have to draw that line in the sand. And for you, that allows you to be more efficient with your time and your energy, which means that you can then give yourself extra time later for self-care that you're not spending sitting in your car. Mm-hmm. So I think that's great. What about you, Jeannie?
Definitely like to run. That helps. But what I've done this last year is I've really made a point, because it's important to me, is I read my Bible every day.
Great.
I start off my day. That's the first, I don't want to say the first thing. I actually shower first because I got to get warm after coming out of the warm blankets. And then, so I've made a mission to, it takes a while to get through that whole Bible when you're actually paying attention to what you're reading. And
but that's the spiritual component of the self-care that we're talking about. So that's really great.
And then I have a teenage son, and sometimes it's hard to get them to go to church and you don't want to force them. So at lunch every day, I have this little book called Acts of Kindness. And it's actually one little scripture. And then it kind of has a little, what you can do in your day to fulfill that, and I share that with my son because it's at his lunch too. And, just kind of planting those little seeds, for him and for, what I believe that God and Jesus does in my day. So that has made me to the point where if I don't read my Bible, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't read today. I gotta do that. I gotta give my first couple minutes, to the Lord. So the rest of the day, I feel like I've started off with something positive. So yeah. And it's made a difference. I think it's helped me to kind of take a step back and look at some of the things that you actually can learn from the Bible at different times in your life.
Absolutely. So, really basically for caregivers and people on the receiving end of care, it's about communication and boundaries and self-care to the best of our ability. And that helps us weather the stressors of the health crisis or whatever issues we're facing in our lives.
Yeah, I think that when you were saying about communication, that and not guessing about things and spending extra emotional energy, like maybe guessing wrong.
Right.
It's just so much easier and clearer to just ask and be like, hey, before I assume something and get it wrong, let me ask you this so then we can get this all cleared. And I think that that's just like it's easier for the caregiver and the receiver as well, because it just makes things like, again, so crystal clear. And they know what to expect and you know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so simple just to say, what do you need from me right now? What does that look like for you? Paint me a picture, because they may say, well, I just need someone to be nice to me. Well, what's that mean? What's that look like? So have a conversation. Let's figure it out so that we're on the same page and have the same expectations, and then we can just make it happen. I have couples sometimes that I work with who've been together for like 50 years and they still kind of expect the other one to read their minds. I'm like, that's not fair. Why are you setting them up to fail? Just tell them what you need. Yeah.
Things that you said tonight really resonated with me. Prior to cancer and now life after cancer. And one of those was really up emotional boundaries. Because prior to cancer, I probably did all of the wrong things. Just let me know how I can help you. I'm here for you if you need me. Like I said all of the normal things.
Right.
But because I had never experienced cancer. Now, life after cancer, I feel like I could be prepared to help someone further to go through cancer, because the biggest thing is about listening and taking my experience in cancer and putting that on them. Example, you talked about nutrition or health or whatever. Like, what you want to eat is what you want to eat, not necessarily what I was going to eat, right? And just being able to be aware of that and that body language, because when someone is first diagnosed with cancer or they're first done with cancer and they're like, oh, well, I should be having all of these scans, right? And then all of a sudden you're the survivor and you're like, but I'm not getting PET. I'd be getting PET scans. And now they don't understand that that's triggering anxiety and fear and all of that. So really just having boundaries of saying, you know what, my doctor and I have talked thoroughly and it's okay. You might need PET scans and I might not,
Right.
I guess you can understand more with that, but that has really been an aha moment in this whole cancer realm of learning that process, because everybody's DNA is different.
Yep.
Everybody's culture and the way they were raised is different. And so we could really learn from each other just by really listening and not responding, but being there for someone as the caretaker, what needs are emotionally, physically, going for that walk or getting them some water, whatever,
Right. Absolutely. And again, that's an example of trying to anticipate their needs based on our own projection, right? Rather than tell me what it is that I can help with, or how is this experience for you? I know how it was for me, but my experience may be totally different. So I like that. Just be a good listener. Yeah.
Let me see. This would be a good time for the people watching on YouTube and Facebook. If they have any questions, definitely write it in. I know we have Eileen watching. Hi, Eileen. And I think she said that. Here we go. So Eileen, she said, also as a person who is cared for, it's tough to be vulnerable, like what you were saying.
Yeah.
So, and I guess Shay, do you like, can you speak to that? Like when you were being cared, like were being cared for, like, was it hard for you to voice what you needed?
It was because I always was the person taking care of everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to learn how to accept cared for.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never really experienced someone care of me. And that was very hard. And it was hard because it opened me up vulnerability wise.
Yeah.
People wanted to help, but it was hard sometimes to say, you know what, I'm right now. And I think I did that early on when I had a studio who wanted to raise money. They raised a bunch of money for me, and I just didn't feel right accepting it.
Mm-hmm.
Money is a trigger point for me. And so it was like, that's amazing. I'm going to go ahead and donate that to people, like it was another organization that I donated it to. But it was because I didn't feel like I deserved it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Maybe because I didn't want to acknowledge I was going to lose my hair and that I was going to have to go through chemo and all of that. Looking back, that's kind of how I analyze that.
Yeah.
And so being able to give it away was me to take care of someone else again. And so it made me feel better. So that was early on. Then I was able to oh, wait a minute. My insurance doesn't pay for wigs. And it was $1,500 and I just gave money away. It made me second guess different things. But it was also a good learning process too, I mean, like, you do deserve this. You are going through a lot. And being able to slowly acknowledge what was going to start to happen.
Right. Absolutely. And I think too, a lot of times we don't want to feel like we're a burden to other people.
Right.
And so it's hard to accept the help. But how does it feel to, I don't know, I think a little bit about how does it feel for people who are always on the receiving end of care? I think part of how they can feel valuable in a relationship is to be able to give back when they have that opportunity that helps them feel like they're adding value to the relationship and the connection. And so to allow somebody to care for you can also enrich your connection with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I don't see any other questions so far. But I think that this is also really great. Thank you for speaking and talking about this, because it's been, I think, in any type of relationship, professional or otherwise, all of these are very important tools to have and to and to utilize in all of your relationships, right? Mm-hmm. So thank you for bringing all of them up and giving us some good ideas. Jason asks, what do you caregivers do to feel valued when sometimes their care recipient doesn't or can't recognize?
That's a tough one. Again, I think you try to set boundaries as best as you can. and realize that sometimes when people are negative or they're not grateful, it's less about what you're doing or not doing and more about their own mental state. Maybe they're depressed because they're having health issues or they're grieving their own loss of functioning or wellness. And you're the person closest to them to kind of dump on, which is a horrible feeling. But sometimes that happens. One of the things that can be really great is to join a support group for caregivers so that you can talk with other people who understand what it's like to be extending yourself to somebody and providing a lot. We don't always get that acknowledgement from the people that we're caring for.
So, thank you for that question, Jason. All right. And any other final thoughts as we wrap up tonight's session?
From me?
Yeah.
I think, as I said earlier, a lot of this is just general self-care and boundaries, because I think that resonates with everybody and prepares us for when something does happen. Even if you're not a caregiver or having to overextend yourself right now, that time will come where something comes up where you have to be as resilient as possible in order for other people to lean on you. And so the better you are at setting boundaries and practicing good self-care, the more equipped you are to handle that. So it's just good life skills.
Absolutely. All right. So we have a few minutes left, and I wanted to do our closing and tell you all kind of why we are doing Talk, Listen, Share. So we are able, or Shay's Warriors and Talk, Listen, Share are able to put together this programming through the generosity of our community partners and sponsors, which are all listed in our website at shayswarriors.org. And all of this is leading up to our annual retreat, the I Am Hope Cancer Survivor Healing Retreat, which this year we will be sending 40 survivors at no cost to them. And we aim to help these survivors get kind of a clear vision on what life after cancer is and help them move forward in whatever way that they need to. And this year, the retreat will be held from June 8th through 11th. So it's 4 days and 3 nights this year here in the Coachella Valley. And if you like what you are learning tonight and enjoy our information on Talk, Listen, Share, please go to our website and click Give to help support our programming and also for our Survivors Retreat. We're also open to nominations. Is that correct? Are we still?
Nominations are open until 17th. Yes.
So we are doing nominations for cancer survivors. Yay. So it is also on the website. And you can click on that and you can nominate yourself. You can nominate somebody else. But all that information is there. So check all of that out.
You can either go to shayswarriors.org or iamhoperetreat.com.
Yeah. And that is right on the bottom of the screen, shayswarriors.org. All right. So we do our live shows once a month, and we all thank you for joining us tonight. And we will see you all next month on the second Wednesday of next month. So thank you again, Wendy, for joining us tonight and being our speaker.
Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
And we will see you all next month. Have a good night, everyone.